studying tools unearthed at a cave site on the western coast of Italy, archaeologist Paola Villa and colleagues have determined that prehistoric Neanderthal groups fashioned them from shells of clams that they harvested from the seafloor while wading or diving or that washed up on the beach. Clamshells become thin and eroded as they wash up on the beach, while those on the seafloor are smooth and sturdy, so the research team suspects that Neanderthals prized the tools made with seafloor shells. However, the team also concluded that those tools were likely more challenging to obtain, noting that blank. Which choice most effectively uses data from the table to support the research team's conclusion? A. At each depth below the surface in the cave, the difference in the numbers of tools of each type suggests that shells were easier to collect from the beach than to harvest from the seafloor. B. The highest number of tools were at a depth of 3 to 4 meters below the surface, which suggests that the Neanderthal population at the site was highest during the related period of time. C. At each depth below the surface in the cave, the difference in the numbers of tools of each type suggests that Neanderthals preferred to use clamshells from the beach because of their durability. D. The higher number of tools at depths of 5 to 6 meters below the surface in the cave than at depths of 4 to 5 meters below the surface suggests that the size of clam populations changed over time.
So in question number 12, we have a table. And the title of the table is Number and Origin of Clamshell Tools Found at Different Levels Below the Surface in Neanderthal Cave. So first of all, we can see that the depth of tools found below the surface in cave meters. 3 to 4 meters, we find a lot, 99 from the beach and 33 collected from the seafloor. But then 6 to 7 meters, only 1 collected from the beach and 0 from the seafloor. And these depths also very low, 4 to 5 meters, just 2 from the beach and 0 from the seafloor. 2 to 3 meters, also quite low, 7 and 0 from the seafloor. And only after 5 to 6, we do see a little bit like 18 from the beach and 7 from the seafloor. So studying tools unearthed at a cave site on the western coast of Italy, archaeologist Paola Villa and colleagues have determined that prehistoric Neanderthal groups fashioned them from shells of clams that they harvested from the seafloor while wading or diving or that washed up on the beach. So either they have harvested the shells of clams from the seafloor while wading or diving, or if anything washed up on the beach, they have used that. But then clam shells become thin and eroded as they wash up on the beach. But if they have collected the ones which come to the beach, those clam shells would not be that strong. They are thin and eroded. But while those on the seafloor are smooth and sturdy, because if they collected from the bottom, they are not yet affected by the waves. So they are more stronger. So the research team suspects that Neanderthals prized the tools made with seafloor shells. So obviously if they have made the stronger ones, which they found after using the ones from the seafloor, from the shells which they found from the seafloor, they would have made stronger tools from those. However, the team also concluded that those tools were likely more challenging to obtain, noting that. But it's not that easy to wade and dive all under the seafloor and get those shells. It's more easier to collect the ones from the beach. So which choice most effectively uses data from the table to support the research team's conclusion? So if you said A, well done. Choice A is the best answer. Choice A is the best answer because it most effectively uses data from the table to support the researchers' conclusion about the harvesting of clamshells by Neanderthals for use as tools. The text explains that Neanderthals used clamshells to make tools and that the sturdiest and therefore the most desirable shells for this purpose are found on the seafloor, not on the beach. However, the researchers also concluded that the clamshell tools made from shells from the seafloor are rarer than those made from shells from the beach. Meanwhile, the table shows that at each depth, the number of tools made from shells from the beach exceeds the number made from the more desirable shells from the seafloor. The fact that the more desirable shells are less common suggests that it was significantly more difficult to harvest shells from the seafloor than from the beach. So, obviously, it is very difficult to go all the way to the seafloor and get those very good quality shells which are more sturdy. Whereas those which come at the beach, they are easy to collect and quickly make the tools which they need. But these obviously will be more priced.
Choice B is incorrect because knowing which depth represents the period of time with the highest Neanderthal population does not help answer the question of why the Neanderthals consistently made more tools from the less desirable shells from the beach than they made from the more desirable shells from the seafloor. Choice C is incorrect because it claims that the beach shells are more durable than the seafloor shells, which contradicts the text's description of shells from the seafloor as smoother and sturdier than shells from the beach. Choice D is incorrect because knowing which depth has the most artifacts or whether the clam population fluctuated does not help explain why tools made from the less desirable shells from the beach outnumber tools made from the more desirable shells from the seafloor.